Hi, this is Bismarck with the language lessons that I promised. I'm going to be teaching basic German for people who want to learn it. I wanted to do this for a lot of reasons, but it sort of got sparked because, two of my friends expressed a lot of interest in learning German. And I'm just going to give some background on myself and sort of my qualifications. I'm not actually a teacher of German, I'm a student really, and I grew up taking this thing called Deutsche Schule, which is it means German school, and it's like an after school activity for a lot of American kids, and they exist around the country. And what they are is it's basically you go there after school and you learn about German culture and language and stuff like that. And it's for a lot of American kids who have German speaking ancestors and heritage, you have Swiss people or Austrian or German or whatever it is, stuff like that. Maybe even Belgian kids. I've never heard of that though. It's usually German and Austrian kids. But yeah, that was my background. And also, I'm just going to give some background in the language. German is a Germanic language, and more specifically Western Germanic. And basically what that means is that, originally there was this country, not really a country, it was an area, Germania, and it was like a bubble around Denmark. And there was South Sweden, South Norway, Denmark, and North Germany. And that was where all Germanic people came from. And then some people moved north, and because of that you have North Germanic languages, which are Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, Faroes, and Icelandic, and there might be others, but those are the main ones it seems. And then, some people moved west and sort of south, and those are the ones that are German, Dutch, Swiss. Swiss is a dialect of German technically, but if you can speak both because it's such a distant language. It's you're considered bilingual basically, even though it is technically a dialect. And so that kind of brings me into this part of this course is going to be sort of etymology, the roots of words, how they're similar, how they're different, and anthropology, why things are the way they are, because we are going to have a cultural segment. Basically, this course is sort of learn with Bismarck, because I'm Bismarck710, that's my YouTube channel, and I'm going to sort of get back into the groove more. And while I review stuff I already know to help get me back into the groove, that'll help you guys learn. And then as we progress to keep reviewing, we can sort of step it up more and more notches until we get to more of an intermediate level, and then eventually, we can think about getting to an advanced level. But right for now, these are basic lessons. I'm going to just jump into it. The subjects in German are ich, du, wir, ihr, and sie. Ich means I, and it's the same as in English. Du means you informal, and that's you informal singular. So it's like talking to a friend or a family member or somebody that you don't have to show a particular level of deference or respect to. Means he, it's the same as in English. Wir means we, same as English. Ihr is you all. It means informal you plural. So that means a group of friends, a group of family members. Sie is it's the formal you. It's formal you singular, so a boss, or formal you plural. So it's a group of sort of social superiors, in the sense that they're people you have to show a lot of respect to. So if you're talking to a group of professors or a group of bosses, those are people you need to use Sie with. Now, on that note, that is a very important part of etiquette, is that you need to know which one to use. And we can get more into that in other lessons, but that's one of the things that you need to know culturally, is that there's the actual language and then there's how it's used. What are the rules of formality? Because if you use it wrong, you can end up offending people, and no one wants to do that. So on to cases. English has 3 cases, German has 4. Old English had 4, just like German, but it got changed over time. Basically in English you have the subjective case, you have the objective case and you have the genitive case. And it's more simply like the subjective case is like he throws the ball. He is the subject, so it's in the subjective case. And then if you extend that sentence, he throws the ball to him. Him now is the object, so it's in the objective case. So that's the second case. The third case, the genitive case, you might as well call it like the possessive case because it's like changing it to his. It is his ball. Okay, so German, basically the only difference is the objective case is broken into two other cases. There's the accusative and the dative. And yeah, the accusative and the dative. The accusative is when like the object, it's like it's the direct object and it receives direct action from the verb. The dative case is when the object receives like indirect action from the verb, and so it's the indirect object. And yeah, you have the subjective case, and you have like the genitive case, and that goes into this thing called declension, which is like, I mean, I'm not defining it necessarily. I'm just giving what sort of an idea of what it is. You know how you can conjugate verbs? It's almost like conjugating nouns, in a sense, and pronouns, that they have to change because of the way that they receive action and what they're actually doing in the sentence. We can get into that later in other lessons, but that's sort of that's an important part of German, and that's something to commit to. And that's one of the things, declension, that really sort of messes people up, because it's a lot to work toward, because the declension in German is much more extensive than it is in English. I mean, you have like they goes to them, and then it can go to their. So that's, you know, taking you through those three cases. But it happens a lot more in German, and there's also a lot of other things. There's also, you know, in French there is a masculine and a feminine, but like in German there's a masculine, a feminine, and a neuter. So there's a masculine, a feminine, and there's like neither for certain, like for words generally. English doesn't have that anymore. English probably used to in Old English, but it doesn't have different genders. That's another thing that I didn't write down, but that's there. I'm just going to go through the alphabet now, because we're talking about like sounds and structures of sentences, but the alphabet's another important thing because it is different, and the sounds are different in German. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Alright, and right there I'm sure that you noticed a lot of different sort of sounds. And the thing about German is that those sounds don't really change that much. I mean, those are the actual names of the letters, but a lot of those names are the actual way that it's pronounced. Like A is pronounced that way, always. And that's another point. German is a phonetic language, which means that the way that it's written is the way that it is literally pronounced. There are certain ways to pronounce the letters, and they do not really change at all. Like they do in English to a degree, and there are sort of... English isn't a phonetic language anymore as it used to be when it was Old English. I mean, it's gone through a lot of changes, and now there are a lot of superfluous letters that are not pronounced. There are a lot of special cases. There's like special cases in the sense of exceptions to how you pronounce things. Like there's fat, F-A-T, and then there's like fat, P-H-A-T. And you know, they mean different things. That doesn't happen in German. It's a much more simple, much more concrete way of spelling things. So that's going to take me into umlauts, which is a thing that's unique to German and a few other European languages. And basically it's two dots above a letter which magnify the they modify the sound. Not really magnify, modify the sound. And the first is a umlaut, which is like it changes it from a to a. So like is the regular sound, a is the umlaut sound with a. So it's in the word like später. Später means later, and then u by itself is like pronounced u. U by itself is I don't know. I actually put my hand over the volume, so I don't know if you guys heard that. But a by itself is pronounced a. Like a by itself is pronounced a. A with an umlaut is pronounced a. U by itself is pronounced u, and then with the umlaut it is pronounced like ü, as in the word müde, which means tired. O by itself is just o. It's like a hard O in English. It's o, and then with the umlaut it becomes ö. So it does sort of modify the sounds, and those last two are sort of vowels that don't exist in English really, and they can be hard for people to say. A lot of times with the U umlaut, it's for me, I like to think about it as like the I sound that's sort of similar, that is in English and German, like that that's in certain cases, but combined with an U, like ü. I mean, it's the official abbreviation for those all are like, it's the regular vowel with an E after it. So like AE, UE, and OE. And you'll sometimes see that on the internet, or sometimes where people don't want to have to hit the special keys to get the umlaut. Also, because it's a phonetic language, I put some special spellings of, some special things that are in German, like about the spellings of things that don't really change. IE is always pronounced I. And then EI is, oh no, sorry, I screwed that up. It's EI is always pronounced I. IE is always pronounced E. EU is always pronounced Oi. V is a V, and that's the name of the letter in German, is V. And V, like this V, it makes an F sound, and so it doesn't make the V sound that is in English usually. It does in Dutch, but not in English, but not in German. The V in German makes like an F sound oftentimes. Like the word Volk is spelled V-O-L-K, but it's pronounced Volk, and it means like a specific group of people. W, which is V in German, it makes like almost like an English V sound. Like if you say I will do something, like ich werde machen, it means like I will make, but werde is, it starts with a W. SP and ST, basically they make those sounds, that come after them, like it's not just sp, but it's shp. So it's almost, with those two, it's almost as if there was a CH after the S, and SCH makes the sh sound, as in schön, which means beautiful. And so whenever you see an SP or an ST, it's never pronounced just S and then that sound. It's always with a sh before the second consonant. So if we go back to später, that's why there's no CH there that would make that sound, because it's not necessary. CH by itself makes a sound that does not exist in English. It's well, maybe I did that a little bit wrong, but if you go back to ich has that sound in it, and it's a sound that exists in German. In Dutch, to a much greater extent, they have a much more exaggerated sound like that. It exists in Hebrew, and it exists in Arabic. And I think that's why a lot of times if you see Hanukkah is spelled with a CH, because of the Chanukah, stuff like that. And a Z, a Z makes like a TS sound, like t. And we can get back to that later, but I'm going to just jump back to CH. And a lot of people find it easier to try to learn how to pronounce that by saying like Hugh, because Hugh Hue in English, even though it doesn't technically have that sound, a lot of times when people say it, they almost say it as though it did. Alright, so I'm going to use those I'm going to use some of these example words and sentences to just show how this is. Die Straße ist schön. And that means, the street is pretty. Now, you'll notice that this has a lot of these examples. It has schön. It has schön, which is, it has the umlaut in it, the O umlaut. It has ST, and it's not just pronounced st, it's pronounced Straße, Straße, and it has this thing called an Eszett, which is one that I forgot to put down. An Eszett means, it can either be called an Eszett or a scharfes S, and basically it means, an Eszett means SZ, and scharfes S means sharp S, and the reason they call it an Eszett is because it's like an S, but then with the Z, a cursive Z, and that's why it looks sometimes like a, if you see it printed, it sometimes looks like a B, but it's really not. It's like an SZ, and it means like basically a sharp S. It's supposed to be a sharper sound. A lot of times now they just replace it with two S's. That's one of those things, and this one uses Z, which is like a TS sound. So this is the second sentence. Jetzt bin ich sehr müde. This means like I'm pretty tired now. Just to get into the structure, and we can get to this a little bit later, in German, they don't literally write it that way, I am very tired now. It's jetzt bin ich sehr müde literally means now am I very tired. It's very similar to how you would see older English, or in fact Old English, how the sort of structure worked there. And, that has the U umlaut sound. And then the last sentence is später werde ich schlafen. I'm going to sleep later. But again, the structure is later will I sleep. In German, the verb is often at the end of the sentence. This is an example where it isn't. This is because this is a very simple sentence. Die Straße ist schön. And in this case, this is exactly how it is in English. The street is pretty. We can get into the structures more deeply later on, but this is another example of the SP, and it's not später, it's später. So später werde ich schlafen. Later I'm going to go to sleep, or I'm going to go to sleep later. Here are the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Alright, that's some of the basic numbers. I'm not going to get into a lot of the other numbers right now. I'll do that next lesson. I'm going to sort of move to the cultural note. I think that in any culture, you have to sort of examine the way they do things by a lot of their history and why it is that they come to the conclusions that they do. Because a lot of people will look to Europe, especially I think from an American perspective, and I'm not trying to be offensive, this is just my perspective here, because I am a proud American, but I think a lot of people look to Europe and they look at things like socialism and it bothers them, but you have to kind of look at their history to understand why it is that they do what they do. So it's not exactly the same kind of decision making as we make here. That's going to be it. That's going to be it for right now. Also, I'm going to show some of the learning materials. I think that if you can't just that we're going to be using in class, that we're going to be using in this lesson and in this series of lessons. 501 German verbs. This is a book that I've been using for a long time, and it has the conjugations of pretty much all the verbs you're going to need to use. And if you know how to pronounce that, all the sounds, that's a really good, useful thing. Because if you look here, it has like examples at the bottom, has a bunch of things, and the newer ones come even with like a little CD. Also, I'm going to be reading excerpts from this book called Germanische Götter und Heldensagen für Alt und Jung by Am Deutschen Hell. and it means like tales of Germanic gods and heroes for old and young by at the German hearth. And it's a mythology book basically, but more than that, it's also an anthropology book, and it's written in this thing called the Old Script, which I can read to an extent, but I need this sort of thing that I have that sort of helps. I have like all the letters written down, and it's easier for me to translate it into a modern script, and then I can read it. It's just a great sort of it's a really great resource if you're going to look at some cultural things and historical things, because it was written in 1899, which is before a lot of some tragic things happened, and so you can really get a view into certain literary things and cultural things, because it references the Germanic gods, it references anthropology, and a lot of things that are traditionally quite Germanic. So, like it has even pictures and things like that. That's pretty much it. I'm going to look at my notes. This is one of the things where I was writing down, one of the verbs and all the tenses, and it shows the imperative, everything. And, we can get more into that next time, but this is pretty much it for me, Bismarck, and I hope this was a helpful thing for you guys. In this course, I'm not really recommending people buy anything right away. This is getting you guys into the pool, so to speak, for free. And I just hope you guys have a nice time and a nice day, and that this helps. Bye.